Am I good again?
You're good, and we are live. Welcome, everybody, to Standing for Truth. I am your host, Donnie, and we are here for another chapter in our 2022 Evolution Debate Series. And tonight I have Ken Rock, who is the evolutionist interlocutor for tonight. Ken is taking the challenge. Ken, I appreciate that. And of course, we have Dr. Ken Hovind himself as well. And the title of the debate for tonight is there scientific evidence for evolution? Gentlemen, Ken and Kent, thank you both for being here for tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Hello.
Awesome. Looking forward to this one. And for the audience sake, I want to just briefly go over the format. We are, as always, going to keep this professional and formal. Ken Rock being in the affirmative, he is going to be kicking us off with his opening statement. Whatever time he takes, we'll allow Dr. Dino to take equal time. Then we'll have a roughly 6-minute rebuttal and then an open discussion where we will focus on one topic at a time. And then this is where we get you guys in the audience involved. We're going to have an audience Q&A, so make sure you're tagging me with your questions at Standing for Truth, and that way I won't miss them. Okay, like we typically do, let's kind of break the ice, get to know the debaters a little bit before the fun begins. Ken Rock, this is your first time here on the platform, so why don't we start with you? How you doing? A little bit about yourself and a little bit about your channel.
So I'm doing fine. I generally do more power scaling debates versus story analysis and stuff like that. So this is going to be a different type of topic for me, obviously. Break out a little bit more. That's my channel, basically. I don't just say about myself.
No worries. It looked like you had a little bit of static coming in there on your end on the audio. Let me see if I'm going to adjust your mic a bit, and hopefully that deals with it. So over to Dr. Dino. Kent, how you been? What's going on? And a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back with you. My name's Ken Hovind. I was raised in Illinois, right where Ken is from. Well, not right where, but now in Lenox, Alabama. I've been a Baptist preacher 48 years. I taught high school science and math for 15 years. And 7 years ago, somebody gave us this property here in Lenox to build Dinosaur Adventureland, 140 acres with 16 lakes and ponds and boats and fishing and all kinds of fun stuff. We have a science center, 12,000 square feet. That is really amazing, on all kinds of cool stuff about science in the Bible. I defend the position that the Bible is true. God made everything in 6 days, just like he said in the 10 Commandments. And dinosaurs lived with man, and evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religion in the history of the world. Dumb. Those are the nice things we say about
it. I don't want to hear the mean things you got to say about it then. Okay. If those are the nice things. I appreciate the introduction from you, Dr. Hovind and Ken Rock. Ken, I did adjust your mic, so why don't you give us another audio test there real quick before we get into your opening statement.
Do I sound better?
You do. Yeah, currently you do. So
okay.
We'll keep it like that. And why don't we get right into it then? We've got opening statements here. Ken, we'll give you the floor. And whatever time you take, we'll give Dr. Dino equal time. So whenever you're ready, Ken, the floor is yours.
Okay. So my position is obviously, I believe evolution to be true. If we look at most definitions of evolution, we generally get stuff that say that evolution is a change within living organisms, such as a change of color would count, a change of height would count, shortening of something like antlers, growing of antlers, and all that as well. So realistically, it's really hard to argue that evolution wouldn't be true within that criteria. It's something that we can see as far as just animals needing to survive. There are frogs that have adapted and even grew the poison that they've been eating on in order to better survive within the wild areas. This is also something we just demonstrate within plants as well. So generally, when you think of a plant, you would think something that gets its energy via photosynthesis. In most plants generally do. However, there are select breed of types of plants that have decided that they can't get enough energy that way. So instead, they've adapted qualities which allow them to trap and eat meat, anything from insects to even like medium-sized birds. And it's done in multiple different ways as well, like from the phoenix fly trap, which just clamps down and digests stuff like that, and it tricks its prey via its nectar, I guess you would call it, to, I can't remember the name of the plant, but there's one that specifically just sits and it holds its liquids in it, and any animal that falls in digests like that. Another way you could also prove evolution, and I know Kent doesn't necessarily agree with it, is the fossil record itself. So when you look at it, you see stuff like whales slowly sorry, 1 second. The skeleton of the whale's ancestors slowly becoming more whale-like. It can be proven with some of the bones that aren't necessarily needed. One being one that Kent's very familiar with, being the one that's been claimed to be its hind legs, which used to control its reproductive system. Well, it can do that now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's only what it's done. Even on humans, if you look at them where we are now, where our hips are, they would necessarily be able to control that function as well. Not necessarily as well, but you could use it to wiffle that around if you truly wanted. But it's also used to connect and move the muscles of the legs. We can also see that that necessarily would be what it is via within relatives that would be closer to whales. Dolphins are known to every once in a while grow hind flippers as well, which dolphins don't necessarily do, which is evidence that they might have had legs in past ancestries. That's about all I can go into now. I'd like to pass it to Kent.
Okay, short and sweet there, Ken. Let me just see how much time you took. So 3 minutes for an opening statement, and typically we go a little longer than that. So of course, if Dr. Hovind wants to take, a couple more minutes or whatever he feels comfortable taking, he can do so. And Kent, we'll hand it over to you, brother, an opening statement.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Ken, for doing this. You said you believe evolution is true. I think we need to first, I guess, get to the right slides here. What do you mean by that word evolution? Because I cover this. I think this is critical for the debate. What do we mean by this word? Let me get up there. There. Textbooks teach that man evolved from a single-celled creature like a bacteria. And I think that is purely a religious belief. Nobody's ever seen a bacteria produce a non-bacteria. But they put these charts in the textbook and say, oh yeah, a bacteria or some single-celled creature evolved into the sharks and the whales and everything else. Evolution is a gradual process that takes over many generations. No, it doesn't take place at all. They imagine this. It's SpongeBob imagination from the beginning. Evolution is defined as a net directional change or any cumulative change in the characteristics of organism. This is what Ken implied tonight when he said change within living organisms. Well, certainly there are changes. I think every farmer in the world will tell you there are varieties of anything can be produced. Varieties of pigs or cows or sheep or ducks or anything, but they're still the same kind. God said they would bring forth after their kind, and that's all we've ever seen. Now, if somebody wishes to believe or imagine other than that, that's now a religion. That's all I've been saying. Variant forms of a gene. Certainly, the genes are incredibly complex and they can produce varieties. New alleles can be formed as a result of mutations. Okay, a mutation, all mutations observed have been neutral, fatal, or harmful. Nobody's ever seen a good one. They imagine them. It would take trillions and trillions and quadrillions of mutations to change a bacteria to a human being. This is pure imagination, okay? Genetic drift and the founder effect they talk about. Let's see. Founders carry some, but not all, of the alleles of the gene pool to the new place. Here's a red ladybug got blown off the land and landed up on an island, and now we got a whole island full of red ladybugs. Okay, that probably could happen, but they're still a ladybug, and they're still red. It didn't create a new color that didn't exist before. It didn't turn it into a whale or an elephant. It's a ladybug. So my objection is the textbooks, and I collect them, the textbooks teach the kids this evolution theory, and it's purely religion. They say life has evolved on Earth. Well, what do you mean by that? That word evolved is too slippery. So for the sake of this debate tonight, there's what's called chemical or cosmic evolution. They have to have the origin of time, space, matter. You can Google it, cosmic evolution. Where did the planets, where did time, space, and matter come from? There is no scientific evidence that time, space, or matter can create themselves out of nothing. This is a religion. You have to believe in it. And some people do. Great. I admire their faith. I don't admire their science, but I admire their faith. Then you'd have to have chemical evolution. If there was a big bang that magically produced time, space, and matter, it would only produce hydrogen and maybe a little bit of helium or lithium. Well, then how do you get all the elements? Origin of the elements. Hydrogen and helium and lithium produced in the hot, extremely hot, dense region of the Big Bang. Okay, you can believe that if you want. And let's say it's true. But 73% of the universe is in the form of hydrogen. How do you get all these other elements? I cover this in my video series, but he didn't take long, so I won't take long. You cannot fuse past iron. Nobody's figured out a way to do that. So how do you get gold, silver, and platinum out of hydrogen gas? I'd like to learn how to do that. Make some money. Man, we got plenty of hydrogen gas around here. We'd turn it into gold. That'd be great, okay? Iron cannot be fused into anything heavier because of the insane amounts of energy and force required to fuse iron atoms. I agree. So it's a religion to believe that. The whole idea of chemicals evolving from hydrogen is a religion. There's no scientific evidence that the 92 elements can create themselves out of nothing, or that they can create themselves into higher elements. It just is not science. It's a religious belief. Then you have to have the stars evolving. You have to get all these elements to make all the stars. Nobody's ever seen a star form. Stellar evolution, a process by which a star changes over time. Well, certainly, the stars are burning out. That's not forming. That's the opposite. Stars are blowing up, nova, supernova. That's the opposite of evolution. We've never seen a star form. Never. The silent embarrassment of astrophysics, we don't know how a single one of these stars managed to form. And this was 35 years ago, and they still don't know how a star could form. Why do stars evolve from Western Michigan? They don't. All evolution in the stars is negative, down. They're burning up, they're burning out. They imagine that they can start over again, but that's a dream. That's imagination. Origin of stars is the most fundamental unsolved problem of astrophysics. I agree. So we can check it out. Nobody's seen a star form. No one really understands how star formation proceeds. Everything Ken described tonight was variations within something that's already alive. You have to have, let me get over to the next one here. You have to have, there we go. He mentioned about the whales, evidence for evolution. Ken, the whales have bones near their, what we would call, there's no pelvis on a whale, but they have bones back there. This textbook says the whale retains pelvic and leg bones as useless vestiges. Jeannie Scott in Berkeley, California, at the National Center for Science Indoctrination, said they have pictures of the whale up there, and this is their evidence for evolution. No, it's not. Those bones back there are part of the whale's reproductive system. But the textbooks tell the kids the whale hind limb bones have no function. Tell that to the whale. They got to have those to make baby whales. Just imagine whales walking around. It's true. These are the bones they're talking about right here, Los Angeles Museum. The whale's pelvis? No. Those bones are anchor points for special muscles. You have a bone in your throat called the hyoid that's not connected to any other bones, but it anchors muscles that allow you to talk and swallow and stuff like that. It's essential. These bones are special bones that allow the whale to make babies. The whales have to mate in the dark, underwater, and they can't talk and say, screw it over, honey. This is an essential part of the whale's reproductive system. Google it. National Pornographic for Kids said millions of years ago, dolphins had legs. This is pure baloney. This is propaganda. And apparently Ken swallowed it in his education. We're here to help you, Ken. We'll get you straightened out. We've got some of the bones here in our museum. By the way, if you work in Alaska and killing whales or something for butchering, we'd like to get some more. Whale pelvic bone. That's not a pelvic bone. It's a bone that's got blood supply, nerve supply. It anchors the whale's penis, which can be 15 feet long, and allows them to mate in the dark underwater with no arms and can't talk. So don't quit calling it a pelvic bone. It's not a hip bone at all. It's part of their whale's reproductive system. You got a kneecap not connected to other bones. It serves a vital function. It connects muscles and ligaments and tendons. So we could talk all day about that, but I've taken more time than I should. But I'm sorry, Ken, the whale is not any evidence for evolution. There is no evidence of any animal ever producing a different kind of offspring. None. I rest my case. Go ahead.
Okay, I appreciate that opening statement there, Dr. Hovind, and also to the audience, thank you so much. We have a ton of fantastic questions flying in, so we are going to have an awesome audience Q&A for tonight's debate. Okay, Ken Rock, we are going to hand it over to you now, and take whatever time you need for a rebuttal. Let's say up to 6 minutes, as in 6 minutes being the max, and then we'll go from there. So, Ken, the floor is yours.
So the definition that you gave for evolution doesn't necessarily go against what I've given for evolution. That's my big problem here. So even if we say animals can't necessarily become other types of animals, you would still necessarily be agreeing that animals do change, which would still be a form of evolution. So even if you out of the way. So even if you disagree in microevolution, it's still a form of evolution. Therefore, you still kind of agree with it. It's a nitpick and all that, but it's still something to point out. But another question with that one would be sorry, I got distracted. If little changes in an animal can happen, why couldn't those little changes add up to bigger changes? Like, let's take, and I've used this example all the time, let's take a goat. Let's say its horns shorten slowly and it grows more fur. It could slowly become more sheep-like, and maybe even become what we would classify as a sheep. Or we could go the other direction and make it bigger, and we could slowly get something that's more cowish or become more of a cow. Another thing that I'm having problems with is you said that all animals produce after their kind. Well, I got to know what a kind is as well. Like, technically, if you want, we could say there are different kinds of people. There's different kinds of hair, or we can all lump those two categories into one thing. Like, hair in general is just hair, or people in general are just people. You said there's, say, fish or their own kind, but there's also different types of fish. So is a pufferfish a different kind of fish than a starfish? Is a starfish a different kind of a fish than a shark? I know sharks aren't necessarily fish, but you get the point. At what point do you draw like what the kind is? Like, you'll never have a shark that produces a goldfish. So as far as that's concerned, that's what I have to say on that. With the whale, I acknowledge that it now uses that bone to control its penis. That's as it is. I've never denied that, but I don't see you really finding any way to prove that it couldn't necessarily have been a leg in past century as well, especially when we look back at the fossil record. It is something that we see within what would be its ancestors, is that they were smaller and able to walk around. It was only once they were able to get into water that they were able to grow bigger and all of that. So take that as you will. 6 minutes. And I also would like to point out again that the plant itself, once again, kind of help prove my point a little bit as well. There's no way that a plant would just randomly grow teeth, digestive acid, and all of that. That it has to be something that's added on. Like, unless you can demonstrate that plants would have had that post flood, I guess would be the best way of putting that. If they did, I would like to see some evidence of prehistoric carnivorous plants. I'm sorry, Donnie, I can't think of too much to go on from that point on. I'd like to pass on.
Yeah, no worries. It's up to 6 minutes, so you don't have to take the full 6 minutes. No worries. Anything we don't take, we just throw into the audience Q&A. So, Ken Rock, I appreciate your rebuttal. We're going to hand it over to Dr. Kent Hovind now, who has up to 6 minutes for a response. Kent, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming on here, Ken. I know it's tough. Try to defend the idea we came from a rock. That's a tough call you made there. Okay, you want to define the word kind, okay? They always tell the people that everybody accepts evolution. No, they don't accept evolution. I accept the fact that cows can jump. They probably don't like it, but they can. They can actually be trained to jump. And you could work them out in the gym and make them jump higher. So I accept the fact that cows can jump. The evidence for this fact is overwhelming. Experiments can be performed to prove the fact cows can jump. Therefore, since I accept the fact that cows can jump, this proves beyond reasonable doubt that given enough time, a cow could jump over the moon. This is the logic of the evolutionist. We see variations within apples, therefore, everything came from a bacteria. This is dumb, okay? Cows cannot jump over the moon, all right? This is fairy tale stuff. What are the 4 processes of evolution? Things, natural selection. Well, sure, natural selection works. It selects. It doesn't create anything. Genetic drift works, but it drifts within the same kind. There's hundreds of varieties of chickens, and they probably had a common ancestor called a chicken. Mutations happen. All mutations are harmful, fatal, or neutral, but even then, it's the same kind of animal. A 4-year-old will tell you it's the same kind of animal. And you want to define the word kind? Well, nobody's ever defined the word species. There's 27 different definitions of species, I believe. We covered that in one of the debates before. So there are 250 recognized breeds of cattle. I accept the fact. And I believe they all had a common ancestor called a cow. There are 6 types of corn kernels. Wow, they might have had a common ancestor called corn, right? Now, most of those were developed by man for a particular purpose. They selected a slice of the already existing gene code. They didn't turn the corn into a whale. It's still corn. 200 varieties of wheat, most of them developed by man to grow in his particular soil or his particular climate or whatever. But they're still wheat. 200 varieties of wheat had a common ancestor called wheat. 4,000 varieties of potatoes might have had a common ancestor called a potato. 335, I think now, or 39 recognized breeds of dogs. Might have had a common ancestor called a dog. It could be the dog, the wolf, and the coyote had a common ancestor. I wouldn't argue about that. But that doesn't mean the dog and the potato have a common ancestor. There are 339 breeds of dogs, probably had a common ancestor. And a 4-year-old can tell you, if you put these 4, say, hey, kid, which one is not like the others? Dog, wolf, coyote, banana. I only had one kid ever get it wrong. And all the times I use this, one kid said, the boy. Well, that's true. Good point, kid. Okay. The Bible says 10 different times in the first chapter they're going to bring forth after their kind. Can you give me an example of anybody who's ever observed a plant or animal that did not bring forth what any 4-year-old would tell you is the same kind? What is the best example you know of somebody observing, not dreaming, not imagining, observing any offspring coming from a parent or parents that the offspring would be considered a different kind? Can anybody ever see an example of that? Darwin wrote a book and called it Origin of Species. Well, as I mentioned, there's over 20 definitions of the word species. What do you mean by that? Rather than argue the semantics, I think a 4-year-old can tell you that's the same kind. Microevolution is variations within those kinds. Now, that one happens. Microevolution, changes within a species or group of animals or organisms, especially over a short period of time. I don't think we should call it microevolution because it confuses the issue. It's just a variation, but that's the word they use. But I will object, Your Honor, right up at the beginning. I don't think that's a wise word to use. It's a variation. Pesticide resistance, herbicide resistance, antibiotic resistance, examples of microevolution. Sure, it's still a bacteria. It's still the same kind of creature, life form. Mosquitoes, let's see. So our sparrow populations in the north have larger bodies than those in the south. This divergence in populations is probably at least partly a result of natural selection. I would agree. You know, up in Minnesota, it gets cold in the wintertime. The sparrows need a bigger body to have their body heat trapped because there's a surface area to volume ratio you can work out with. As an animal gets larger, it has more surface area compared to the volume. Well, sure, skinny little bitty sparrows aren't going to survive up there. No problem. Nature selected, didn't create the sparrow. It selected the bigger ones to survive. That's all that happens. Mosquito population. Let's see, from 1880 to 2000, mosquito populations at 50 degrees north of the equator evolved to wait 9 days later to go dormant. It's still a mosquito. It has to do with the weather. This is so dumb. So science deals with things we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. All of observable history of science tells us cows produce cows, dogs produce dogs, sparrows produce sparrows. No exceptions. Now, if Ken or anybody else wants to imagine that sparrows are related to a mosquito, you can imagine all you want, but that's not science. It's a religion. I wish you guys would quit forcing everybody to pay for that to be taught. Go start a private school. Label it the Evolution School of Illinois, and you got to pay tuition to go there. That's fine. You can teach whatever you want. You can start a Muslim school, a Mormon school, a Catholic school. That's fine. But no, you want to put it in the public school where everybody's got to pay for it. I object to that, Your Honor. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hovind. Perfect timing on the rebuttal. That concludes the rebuttals and the opening statements. And also to any critics in the chat, we've got a lively chat tonight. We have an outstanding evolution debate challenge. So if you believe you're related to a banana plant, send me an email and let's set you up for a debate. So that being said, break time's over. Ken and Dr. Hovind, we are now moving into the open discussion. And as always, we are going to stick to one topic at a time. We're going to keep it professional and sophisticated. So Ken Rock, let's hand it over to you for the first point or first question that you want to start off with. Go ahead.
So I'm going to say this in the way that seems the least rude here, but I never brought up the word species. So I find it weird that you would tell me that that word is fuzzy when all I'm asking for is a basic definition of kind. That way I can work with that. If you want a definition of species, just ask for it. But I asked for kind.
Okay, fair enough. The Bible says 20 times in the first 7 chapters, they will bring forth, i.e. make babies, after their kind. So if 2 animals are able to mate and bring forth a baby, they are certainly the same kind. I'd be willing to bet you $500 you cannot get a cat and a banana to produce a baby. Those are different kinds. I'd bet you $1,000 you couldn't get a cat and a mosquito to produce a baby. Now, could you get a cat and a mountain lion? I don't know. Could you get a lion and a tiger? Yeah, makes it ligon or a tigon or liger, depending who's the male. So there are some gray areas where nobody's got a real solid line, but generally, cats produce cats, cows produce cows, dogs produce dogs. So if they can produce offspring, they are certainly the same kind. Now, are there a few where eventually you get to the point where Great Danes and Chihuahuas might have a hard time? Technically, they could produce a baby, but they're getting variety. They're getting to the extreme of that kind, but they're never going to cross over to something non-dog. So I hope that answers your question.
Kind of more explained how you would figure out what a kind is. So would you say a dog, a wolf, and a fox are the same kind?
I think yes. I'm not sure about a fox. I think a fox can interbreed with a wolf and a coyote and a dog. I don't know. I didn't look up fox on that one. Somebody Google that real quick. Can a fox breed with a dog? But I think it's obvious. The fox and the corn plant are not the same. Now, that's pretty obvious.
But yeah, no, foxes cannot breed with dogs. But if I remember correctly, dogs can breed with wolves.
Oh, it could be. Now, but see, the textbook show, like a picture I've got up here, they show the dogs at the top are related to worms. They drew a line between them on the paper. Look at this. They drew a line between a pine tree and a dog. Do you believe, Ken, that if you go back billions of years, the pine tree and the dog had a common ancestor? Do you believe that?
I believe if you looked, yeah, you could probably find one. There's definitely reason to believe so.
So the dogs are peeing on their great-great-great-great-grandpa.
It's a tough world. What do you want me to say? Have you seen what cats do to animals? It's terrifying.
Have I seen what now?
Have you seen what cats will do to other animals? It is terrifying.
What cats can do? Oh, yeah. I think the whole creation we're living in is fallen in a fallen state, and it's evil. This is not the way God made it. God made a perfect world. Man wrecked it. But he's going to fix it back one day. I'd like you to be there with me, Ken. You got to accept the Lord as your Savior, though. But my objection is they connect these animals. Here's a human. You believe a human and a snail have a common ancestor?
I think we both know how I'm going to answer that one. Yeah, I believe if you look back hard enough, you could probably find one. My big problem with the graph that you're showing is there's simplified versions of it. So obviously we got humans right there, but obviously it didn't go from human all the way down to Is that a sea sponge?
Protozoa. Yeah, sponge.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, it's hard to see from my end. It's really tiny.
Here's a human and a chicken and a frog have a common ancestor. These drawing lines on paper, these family trees, is my objection. This isn't science. This is something somebody chooses to believe in. Nobody ever sees any of these creatures. Nobody's ever seen a chicken produce a non-chicken. There are 300 varieties of chickens in the world today. We have 35 of them in our science center here in our farm. They might have had a common ancestor called a chicken. No farmer in the history of the planet has ever seen a chicken come from a non-chicken or produce a non-chicken. But you have to imagine that it happened long ago and far away. They show the chicken and the lizard and the frog and the fish having a common ancestor. I object. That isn't science. That's a stupid religion. You're welcome to believe it, but keep it out of the schools. That's my objection. I think most other intelligent people feel the same way. Go teach that to somebody who wants to pay and come learn it. I don't want to pay for it.
I'm sorry, is it back to me?
Go ahead. Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I didn't want to step on your toes by interrupting you.
No, thank you.
So, if somebody were to able to demonstrate something like a cat growing wings, would that bring you the other way around?
If a cat grew wings, that of course is hypothetical, has never been seen or happened. That would be new. Yeah, that would be new information that's never been seen. So again, you'd have to imagine that, just like a person growing wings or flying with his underwear on the outside of his pants, like Batman. That would be imagination. It's not observed. All we observe is they bring forth after their kind. Humans make baby humans every time. Some are dark-skinned, some are light-skinned, some are tall, some are short, some are smart, some are stupid, but they're still human. So this belief system, this religion, that dogs and snails and starfish and let's see, slime molds in there. Well, the slime mold, this is not science. The purpose of this debate is for you to present evidence that stuff like this that is taught, evolution, is scientific. It isn't. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. We can observe dogs produce dogs. That we can observe. We can observe some wild varieties of dogs. We've never observed a non-dog. And we certainly don't know that a dog and a sponge have a common ancestor and a pine tree. You guys, you don't understand how it's not science. I think it's dumb, but you can believe it. Fine with me. Go ahead.
Well, again, if I could figure out how to screen share on here. I don't know where the button for that is.
Bottom of the screen, screen share.
Oh, I see it.
Are you looking to screen share, Ken?
Yeah.
So the bottom of the screen, there should be the fourth button, says share. When you click it, another box will pop up and it'll say entire screen. Make sure you click the box. It'll be like a mini version of your screen in the middle, and then the share button at the bottom right hand corner. You should be able to click it.
Sorry, give me 1 second for me to pull up the correct image.
And as you're doing that, I'll let everybody know in the chat. You're doing a fantastic job tagging me with your questions. We are going to have a solid audience Q&A. We got some great questions flying in. So just make sure you are tagging me at Standing for Truth. That way I don't miss it, because we do have a pretty lively chat right now. Ken, it might be best to not share your screen just because of your Chromebook currently. It might That's just fair. Take too much bandwidth at that point. There might be issues. But if you wanted to verbally make your point to Kent, and then we'll allow Kent to respond.
Well, I don't know. That's fair. No, I was basically going to say I have that picture of the cat with wings. I've seen it. I've also seen snakes growing legs.
You said he's seen a cat grow wings?
A picture of a cat with wings, Ken?
Yeah. Could try this one more time. Maybe. No, too bright. Oh, too bright.
You got the picture on your screen? Hold it there. I'll put it. I'll put it. Is that so? That's a cat with wings, Ken.
Yeah. Also have my snake with legs.
You want me to
Sorry,
finish up?
Johnny.
Hey, real quick,
Yeah. So
No.
So a snake with legs and a cat with wings, Ken.
Okay. Can I
there
ask
are
him a question?
examples of animals growing weird mutations.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Hovind.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, Ken, is this actual wings or is it 6 legs? Cats can produce extra legs. That's happened, documented thousands of times, of animals with extra fingers, extra legs, extra arms. Certainly that can happen. But the gene code of the cat does not contain anything to make a real wing. It might have made a leg that you're holding out to make it look like a wing. It could be the case where you got a 6-legged cat. I think you'll find, somebody Google that. How many 6-legged cats have been born? So I don't think it's a wing. Secondly, I'd ask, can it fly? What's the purpose of it? And thirdly, who's this going to marry? Who is this cat going to marry? And so same with the snake with legs. It might be a legless lizard. Certainly, the snake used to have legs according to the Bible. It lost them. So you may have something in the gene code of a snake that is still capable of making a leg. I wouldn't argue about that. I don't know. But if it is, it's not, who's it going to marry? You're going to get 2 of these at the same place. How many toes does a cat with extra toes have? Well, 18 toes on one cat. Man. 8. Kitten born with 9 lives, 6 legs. Okay, New York Post, 2018. Cat born with 6 legs. Okay. It's a condition. A 6-legged cat called polymalia.
Well, that's
Okay. So if your cat, I'll tell you what, Ken, if your cat really has wings, I'll pay you $1,000 for it when it dies. I want the skeleton in my museum down here. Okay? I think it has 6 legs maybe, but not in the wings.
No, it has actual wing bones.
Well, wings have bones and legs have bones.
Yeah, but leg bones generally have toes.
Well, the front legs of the cat have 2 bones in the lower part, the radius and the ulna. It has a single bone here, and then 2 bones. So I think probably that has the same thing. Yes, sir.
I was doing some research on the type of cat that does actually grow quote-unquote wings. They are not registered limbs. They are extra flabs of skin that grow 1 year in as a... Get up here where they can hear that better. You Google cat with wings. There's no bones in them? There's no bones. It's a flab of skin that grows 1 year after birth. It's a flab of skin that grows a year after birth. You probably can't hear him talking here, but
No, I can hear.
Ken, I'll tell you what, I'll do some research on that. We'll make some slides of that. Send that to me, and we'll produce that. But my question would be, is that evidence enough for you to make you believe that all life forms came from a bacteria?
Well, necessarily, the wings don't necessarily, like, even let's say they don't have wings and they're just flaps. Wings don't necessarily have to be used to fly right off the bat. Wings can be used to also generate extra heat to keep themselves warm and all that. If that just happens to end up like, if the animal ends up getting lighter or with stronger wings and all that, that could allow flight in the future. Also, you brought up, and sorry, I don't mean to shotgun here, but you also brought up the question of who would it marry, like who would it breed with, correct?
I'm not understanding what you're saying. Can you say that slower and more clearly?
Yeah. So
I think he's asking you.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm trying to think of a way to say it more clearly.
Are you asking Kent what the cat would breed with? Is that what you're saying, Ken Rock?
I'm asking if that's what he asked.
No, I'm completely lost.
During your part where you were asking 3 questions, you had asked, who would this cat marry? I'm assuming that
who would the cat marry?
With?
Yeah. Would you not have to get 2 of male and female in the same place at the same time in history for this?
No, not necessarily.
So the cat with wings is going to hang around for millions of years and find him. Is there going to be a whole population of cat with wings someday?
Maybe. Okay. No, but so necessarily the cat could breed with another cat, and just pass on that genes down to that cat. So you get 1 that ends up becoming 2, that ends up becoming 4. Please don't insult me, Kent.
Oh, SpongeBob. Yeah, it's imagination. So I'll do some research. This is a brand new one to me. I've never heard about somebody claiming that cats have wings. I'd go along with a fold of skin, a flap of skin. I'd go along with extra legs, but I'm going to have to be convinced that a cat with wings.
Well, I mean, what is a wing if not an extra flap of skin?
Well, I'm getting a few extra flaps of skin myself. I'll be 70 here this January, and but I sure can't fly with them. Okay.
I mean, wait for them to get big enough, go outside, right, open your eyes, and glide.
But this is enough evidence to convince you that all life forms are related. I'm baffled. They put these charts in the books like it's some kind of science, and claim that a snail and a human have a common ancestor. And a cat with flaps of skin on the side is enough to convince you that it can happen. I'm baffled.
Okay, why don't we do this now, Ken? Because what we are trying to do now for these debates is spend no more than 10 minutes per line of evidence. So we discussed that specific example, the cat with wings for a little while there. Ken, what would be another line of evidence that you would point to in terms of, evidence for evolution? And that type of evolution that would say, all life, plants and animals are related. And then we'll engage that a little bit. Ken, go ahead.
Okay, well, one of the things I had also brought up earlier, actually I did it twice, was the fact that there are plants now that are carnivorous. I don't necessarily believe that at any point in the Bible that it even says that plants necessarily eat meat, but we have them. So that would mean that they didn't have that genetic makeup beforehand. So where would that have come from, if not evolution?
Okay, so you're asking how we got carnivorous plants? Okay, go ahead, Dr. Hovind.
Excellent question. There are a few carnivorous plants. The Venus flytrap, I used to know the names of all of them, but I don't. Anyway, you're right. There are some plants that live off of, that are carnivorous. They eat meat. Most of the time, you'll find they grow in nitrogen-poor soil, and that's why they have to have this to supplement. They may be a degeneration of the original plant, but even then, you'd have to say, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, these plants are eating like mosquitoes or flies or something. In the Bible, I don't think you could prove that mosquitoes or insects in general are considered alive. I think we could prove that animals certainly are living, but it has to. Bible says God told Noah to bring onto the ark all those in whose nostrils was the breath of life. Insects don't have nostrils; they breathe through their skin. So is a plant considered alive in the biblical sense? Is an insect considered alive? That's another argument, another debate. I think somebody could make the case that in the biblical sense, they're not considered alive. They're a complex, self-replicating food source. Is a computer alive because it can do all kinds of things? No, it's not alive. So I'll do some research on that one also. That's a good one. Plants carnivorous. If a plant has degenerated to the point where it requires meat to get nitrogen, is in nitrogen-poor soil, is that evidence enough that humans and chickens have a common ancestor? I think all the evidence, Ken, if you look at it, the little bits of fragments of what you consider evidence are so minor in the big picture of things. It's like the cow jumping over the moon. Look, we trained that cow to jump 3 feet high. Whoa, okay. And you might work that cow out and put him in the gym and all that kind of stuff and feed him vitamins and get him to jump 4 feet high. Okay. You're not going to get him to jump over the moon. And you guys are imagining that these little changes that we see are evidence to make these charts. I mean, the textbooks are full of this stuff. It is imagination. It is lines drawn on paper. I could draw lines on paper connecting anything I want. It's not science. There is no scientific evidence of a chicken ever producing a non-chicken. There's no scientific evidence going backwards, which the only thing we can do is imagine, go back to human history. Chickens make chickens every time. If you wish to imagine that a chicken and a frog have a line between them, that's okay. It's not science, that's all. The purpose of the debate is where's the real scientific evidence for evolution? I will investigate your Venus flytrap and pitcher plant, and there's one more, insect eating, maybe more than one more, but sure. There are plants that eat insects. They need them for the nitrogen, mostly nitrogen-poor soil. Go ahead.
They also eat birds.
They what now?
They also eat birds.
They also fern. What?
Are you saying they eat birds?
Eat birds. Okay, sure. Yeah. Well, I think the Venus flytrap, for instance, has little triggers, little hairs on there. Anything can touch it and make it snap shut. I mean, you can touch it with a pencil. We did that in my science class. We grew some Venus flytrap. You can touch it with your finger and it'll snap shut. You have to trigger it twice or three times. I forget. So there's different varieties of Venus flytrap. So you could trigger it with an acorn. So it's not looking for a bird. It could digest one if the flytrap is big enough and the bird is small enough. Certainly it probably could. The acids in there could probably digest your finger. But it doesn't mean that's what normal diet, it doesn't mean that's what's required. So yeah, you're probably right. But they could eat a bird.
Oh, I wasn't talking about the Venus flytrap. The pitcher plant eats birds.
Pitcher plant. If a bird fell in, yeah, the acid would dissolve it. Right.
Ken, did you want to present another one of your lines of evidence as we kind of wind down the clock here?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just a little bit cold. Another it kind of follows the same idea as the plants and all that, as well as, and I brought this up to you before, the mud skipper as well. It's an animal that could very well go either way as far as being more of a fish or more of a reptile, depending on how that evolutionary line works. And I mean, obviously we can't tell the future. I could imagine you would agree with that, correct?
Well, I have a book that tells the future that I happen to believe in, but yes, okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, outside of what that book predicts.
Right.
So,
I'll make a prediction. If you crossbreed dogs for 500 generations, which you're not going to live long enough to do, you're going to get a dog. But you could get bacteria to make babies and grow up, get married, and have babies in 20 minutes. I bet you could watch 1,000 generations of bacteria, and at the end of the experiment, it's going to be a bacteria. That I can predict.
Well, to be fair, as far as evolution is concerned, it doesn't really say that anything really leaves its category, but that's fair enough. But back to the point that I was making with the mud skipper. What would stop, like, again, you can't see the future, I can't see the future. So what would stop it from some of them going out, becoming more land-like, and others going out and becoming more fish-like?
Well, I think they've raised mud skippers. Can somebody Google what's the generation time for a mud skipper? Do they grow up, get married, and have babies in less than a year? Are mud skippers sexually mature at 1 year?
Oh, Kent, it looked like your audio has gone out suddenly. Oh, it looks like it's still out. Here, just a second. Let me see if you're muted. You're not muted, Dr. Hovind. And Ken, are you able to hear Dr. Hovind?
No.
Okay, so it's not just me. Let me see.
Come on, one of you's got to make the evolution joke.
Who wants to make it? I guess as Team Hovind's figuring that out, I want to thank everybody in the chat for their super stickers, super chats, and solid questions that are flying in. So we'll probably start kind of winding things down in terms of the discussion. Steve, if you can hear me, brother, maybe if you guys dropped out and came back in the studio, maybe that would reset the audio or the mic. Okay. So he'll do that. And as we wait for Kent, any last minute questions, feel free to tag me. But what I'll do is remind everybody that we have some upcoming shows. The Evolution Debate Challenge does continue next week on the 31st. So we actually have two main events back to back. So we have this one on the 31st. Is evolution a reasonable scientific theory? D. Brian Emery and Dr. Dino. And on the 30th, we've got the much anticipated debate on the nature of God. Or actually, more specifically, does the New Testament teach that Jesus is God? So we've had this scheduled for a few months, and I promise ya, it is going to be worth the wait. Chris Date versus Dr. Shabir Ali. So that is on the 30th. And again, on the 31st, we've got D. Brian Emery and Dr. Dino. They are going to be duking it out. And then the fun continues first week of April. So first week of April, we have the Genesis flood debate. Professor David McQueen and Jason Torn. I'm looking forward to this one. This one should be a sophisticated debate. Two scientists here discussing the science of the flood. Then also that same week, the evolution debate challenge continues. We've had a ton of fun with this. This time, though, it's going to be Snake was right. So they're going to be debating, is there reasonable scientific evidence for evolution? Dr. Dino and Taylor, they have debated this topic before, but I think it's going on about 3 years now. So this will be the epic rematch, at least in terms of that specific topic. And I think that's pretty well it. We do have, this is not the updated thumbnail, but we do have the round 2 between Wade the Wizard and Dr. Dino. Is evolution a reasonable scientific theory? The title is actually going to be Evolution on Trial, but that is going to be next month. That is going to be, I believe it's on the 22nd. So just make sure you are checking out the events section and keeping yourselves up to date on all the shows that we have for you. We also just booked for the 2nd. I should have it posted in the next couple days. We're going to have Dr. Jerry Bergman here. That is going to be on, again, April 2nd. He's going to be giving a presentation on human evolution. So I'm excited for that. Dr. Jerry Bergman has done a ton of work in the in terms of young Earth creation. He's published a ton, and I believe he's got like 9 degrees. So that is going to be a ton of fun as well. So that being said, though, that's pretty much it for announcements. Jeremy Wong says lots of debates coming on. Yes, I am in the midst of confirming a big debate on soteriology, because we just had this one last week with Dr. Robertson Jenis and Kelly Powers. We're going to be debating the same topic in a couple months, and I'm just in the last stages of confirming some details in terms of Robertson Jenis's next opponent. And it's going to be a big debate. So once I have the details kind of nailed down for that one, then I'll announce the exact topic and who the debaters are. But until then, actually, here we go. We've got Dr. Ken Hovind. Good to have you back, brother. Let's test your audio.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I got green light here. Are you okay over there?
We're good. We're good to
All
go.
right.
Good to have you back.
But I'm confused now. I'm in the other corner. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It was an evolutionary adaptation. So
there. Okay.
No, switch it back. He defends evolution. I defend the Bible.
Okay, why don't we do this? Because we got a ton of audience questions. Ken, why don't you finish your last point? We'll allow Kent to address it, of course. Then we'll go into some closing statements, and then we'll get in some of these questions. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with them. So go ahead, Ken Rock.
Okay, I'm going to make it nice and sweet just so we can get that through then. So my basic question is, what's stopping a mud skipper from becoming more land-based or fish-based, or even both, depending on what they do?
Okay, my answer would be it would appear that genetics would stop that. What stops an elephant from learning to fly? Well, there's nothing in the gene code to make wings, and certainly they're too heavy to fly. Mud skippers are designed to be mud skippers. I think generation time, they live to be about 5 to 8 years old. Is that right? Did you find out when can they reproduce? Well, they grow to be 30 centimeters long. It's about a foot. And at 10 centimeters, they can reproduce. So how long does it take them to get to 10 centimeters? I don't know.
I want to say a year.
About a year? Okay. So let's suppose you get a new generation of mud skippers every year. One human being living 60 or 70 years could observe 70 generations of these things. And if you could talk to dad and grandpa and great-grandpa, you probably could observe hundreds of generations of mud skippers. I'd be willing to bet you won't find anybody that's ever seen a mud skipper produce a non-mud skipper. They're an unusual fish designed to live in the mud, to breathe air, or breathe underwater. They're interesting fish, but they're still a fish. If you wish to imagine it, something, halfway between, a mud skipper might be on here. Let's see. No. So it's imagination. We never see a mud skipper produce a non-mud skipper. You have to imagine it.
I guess that's it then.
Yeah. What we can do here, unless Ken, you wanted to, well, you know what we'll do, Ken, because you started us off, you're in the affirmative tonight. Let's give you up to 5 minutes for a concluding statement. So if there's something you want to respond to there, do it in your concluding statement. Then we're going to give Kent a 5-minute concluding statement. Then we're going to do some audience questions and shut it down right around the 1.5-hour mark. So Ken, go ahead, take up to 5 minutes. You don't have to take it all, but up to, and go ahead. Floor is yours.
So realistically, all I can say from this point is, even if we say that species don't evolve from other species, like a cow can't become a whale, or a dog can't become a cat, or a snake can't become a dragon, even within the definitions and what Kent has said here, he still says that he still believes microevolution. So still, even if we were to go off the technicalities, that's still a form of evolution, which would still prove that evolution is a real thing, even if it doesn't explain the origin of species. So everything we know about it can be completely wrong, and it would still be a valid thing. I don't have much to say outside of that, unfortunately, for now. So.
Okay, Ken Rock, thank you for your concluding words there. Over to Dr. Dino. You have up to 5 minutes for your concluding words.
Okay, I don't think the word microevolution is a good one to use. As I mentioned earlier, I think we're stuck with it. They use it, but it's really just a variation within the same kind. Dogs produce dogs, cows produce cows. There are no exceptions, none. If you wish to believe otherwise, that becomes imagination, not science. So I'll stick by my guns that I believe the Bible says they always bring forth after their kind. The origin of life is a serious problem for evolutionists. And it's never been demonstrated that life can make itself. Intelligent people can take clay out of the ground. We have a lot of clay in our clay gravel pit here in Lenox, Alabama, 140 acres of it. They can shape it into millions of things like pottery. Intelligent people can take clay and make cool things. My coffee cup made out of clay. Okay? It was shaped by an intelligent mind. That does not prove the coffee cup can shape itself. This is the difference, okay? Intelligent people can take iron ore out of the earth and mine it and make a lot of stuff. We have iron ore all over our property. Ken, come on down and visit Dinosaur Adventureland. We'll show you around, give you the tour here. It's all free. I think intelligent people can melt down the rocks that contain iron and separate it and smelt it and make steel. I think intelligent people can take the steel and roll it into sheets or beat it into different shapes. They can stamp it into all kinds of things. Intelligent people can take this steel and shape it and make a car. I agree. That does not mean the iron ore can make the car by itself. You guys want to say the humans and all the animals are made of different elements. That's correct. But that doesn't mean they made themselves. The Bible says very clearly, the Lord God formed man of the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. There's more to humans than just a body. Animals or plants have a body, and they are alive in what we call alive, but they just have a body. Animals have a body and a consciousness of life. There's something different between animals and plants. I think most folks agree with that. And then man has a body, soul, and spirit. Man is not only alive, he's aware that he's alive, and he's aware that there's a higher power. No animals appear to be aware that there's a creator. None of the pigs pray before they eat. So I think God can take the dust from the ground and fashion a man. That does not mean the dust can make itself into a man. Evolution wants to eliminate God altogether. Good luck with that one. And I don't mind if they want to believe that, but it isn't science, and it shouldn't be forced down all the kids' throats in the school system. Textbooks teach that man came from an amoeba. I resent that. I think that is ridiculous. You choose to believe that, great. Keep that at home. Don't teach that in public schools or at taxpayer expense. Okay, so I believe the Bible said they'll bring forth after their kind 20 times in the first 7 chapters. That's all we've ever observed. And I've chosen to believe that on faith. I'm not asking everybody to pay for that to be taught in schools, but I think the scientific evidence would say, dogs always produce dogs. That's all we've ever seen in human history. So maybe that we can go back to might have started from an original dog. That would be a logical conclusion, that somebody created the first 2 dogs and they've been making dogs ever since. No exceptions to that. So I just resent people claiming or thinking that evolution is scientific. It's not scientific. It's dumb. It's a religious belief. So, okay, I'm anxious to see audience questions here, but I stand my ground. I think there has been tonight 0 evidence presented for the evolution theory, anything above microevolution, which is just really a variety of the same kind. Mud skippers make baby mud skippers every time. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dino, there for your concluding words. Great back and forth, Ken and Kent. Very enjoyable, and we've had a lively chat as well. They have thoroughly enjoyed this exchange, and we've got a ton of questions from the chat as well. So what we'll do is just go all the way right back to the beginning and start with the first questions that have come in. So let's start off here with Chris Peacock. I'll put them up on screen so we can read them together. Whoever the question is for, though, gentlemen, what we usually do is make sure that they get the last word. So if the question is for Kent, we'll make sure he gets the last word. So here's the first question that comes in, and it is for you, Dr. Dino. So this one comes in from Chris Peacock. His question is, standing for truth, how did we go from a few thousand kinds of animals on the ark to over 8 million species now without macroevolution?
A great question and a fair question. Keep in mind, the evolution says all these 8 million animals came from a rock. That's a problem. Okay, to go from, let's pick a number. I think there's a website based on the Hebrew word kind, Baraman. It's called baraminology.com. They claim that there are probably about 8,000 kinds of animals that had to be on the ark. Now, no, we didn't have to take fish on the ark. There's plenty of fish outside, okay? And is this number 8 million, does that include fish? Because they would not have to be on the ark. Does that include insects? Insects can survive on floating log mats, and in disastrous floods, there's always floating log mats and floating debris. But Noah was told to take onto the ark all those in whose nostrils was the breath of life on land, on dry land. So that would limit it to about, let's say the number 8,000 is reasonable. To go from 8,000 animals to 8 million animals, I don't know that that number is correct. If you exclude fish and insects, maybe the 8,000 animals went to 1 million different varieties today. There are 339 varieties of dogs, most of them produced by man, because some lady wants to have a little lap dog to hold in her lap, so they keep crossbreeding for small. Some want a big one, they keep crossbreeding for bigger. Some want a fast one, they keep crossbreeding for greyhound or something, but they're still dog. So, and most of the varieties man has produced would not survive in nature. Turn the chihuahuas loose out there in the woods. The squirrels would kill them, okay? They wouldn't survive. So I think to go from 8,000 to, say, 1 million in 4,500 years, which is what the Bible teaches, is reasonable, much more reasonable than to believe 8 million kinds came from a rock or came from a bacteria, which is what the books teach. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but I think any farmer can tell you, you can through artificial selection, create a bunch of varieties. There's 1,100 varieties of apples. Most of them developed by farmers for a particular purpose, sandy soil, dry soil, hot climate, cold climate, sweet apple, sour apple, I don't know. But they're apples. You can't get out of apple. That's the point I would make. They're still the same kind, like the Bible said would happen. Okay, go ahead, Ken.
Thank you for that response there, Kent. And Ken, over to you if you had a response as well. Floor is yours.
I can't think of anything that I could add on to that. It's a fair statement. It's something that I necessarily wouldn't agree with, even if we take into account what Kent had said a minute ago. Like, you have to be careful with fish because they need a very specific type of water that they can live in. I've had fish, I've seen them, they die really fast if something just like pH bounces off. So you mix salt water and non-salt water, pHs, and all that, you're just going to end up with a lot of dead fish. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And Dr. Hovind, you get the final word.
Yeah, all we've ever observed is Animals stay what any reasonable person would consider the same kind. And that's so to go from 8,000 to 8, even if it was 8 million. When you think about that, compared to going from a rock to any kind of animal, that is so bizarre. If somebody chooses to reject the biblical account because they don't believe you could get 8,000 animals to produce all these varieties, but then they choose to instead believe they came from a rock, I just can't comprehend the stupidity of the person who would believe such a thing. But I'll help him. Tell him to call.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your responses on that one. So this one is a super chat that comes in from Alec Cox, and this one is for you. This one's for you, Ken Rock. So Alec asks, what kind of species is a platypus, and how does it square up with evolution, but isn't a transitional form?
So a platypus would go into the mammalian species, but it clearly has features that you would see in reptilians and aquatics, such as the ability to lay eggs and stuff like that. So it's clearly it would be a transitional between our fish-like ancestors and mammalians, if that answers his question.
Sure. Yeah. Over to you, Ken, if you had anything you want to respond to.
I think the platypus probably doesn't care where we classify it. I don't think any animals care what we think about them, okay? They don't care if we put them in the bird category or the fish category. A platypus is quite obviously produces baby platypus. Platypuses are only attracted to other platypuses. There just are no exceptions. So they are unusual. There's some unusual cars man has designed, 3-wheel cars, 6-wheel cars, okay? So they're still designed. I think the platypus was designed to do what it does, and it always makes baby platypus. So it's not a transitional form. The fact that somebody decided it's transitional between A and B doesn't mean it is. So far, the platypus only produced platypus. There are 2-wheeled motorcycles and 4-wheeled cars. There's also 3-wheeled motorcycles. But it's not transitional between the two. It's created to be a 3-wheel motorcycle. And the platypus is created to be a platypus. It's not transitional between anything.
Thank you, Kent, for your response. Ken Rock, to be fair, the super chat question was originally for you. You can have the last word.
I don't know if there's much I can add to that.
No worries. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this is a super chat that comes in from, let me see here. I missed the name. Okay, that's fine. So this one is for you, though, Dr. Hovind. So this one says, considering how often you mention them, how would you reclassify autotrophic versus heterotrophic protists under a kind model? Would you consider the, well, he's getting pretty specific here, G127 polymorphism that, let me see here, that cured Kuru a beneficial one? Not everyone's going to know what these terms are, so I'm going to put them up on screen for the audience sake. Right here, a heterotroph is an organism that eats other plants or animals for energy and nutrients. Autotrophs are known as producers because they are able to make their own food from raw materials and energy. Ken, any thoughts on that?
Well, can you put the question back up? That was kind of complex.
Yeah. Let me find it here. There we go.
How would you reclassify?
How would you classify autotrophic versus heterotrophic?
Again, I don't think any plant or animal or insect or fish cares how we classify them. They don't care. They know to look for their same kind when it goes to find a mate. My dogs show no interest whatsoever in the cats or the chickens. They're looking for another dog. Okay, they know what the same kind is. Our cows show no interest in the pine trees, none. So I think that they know. Most animals know. So the fact that somebody decided to call it a new kind is that you can call it whatever you want. But I don't think there's any evidence for evolution. So I'd have to do some more study on that specific question. What exactly does he want? Does he think that is evidence that we all came from a rock, or that animals can somehow produce wildly different kinds over billions of years? It's imagination. I disagree. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hovind. Anything you wanted to add before we get to your question, Ken?
Yeah, real fast. You can't hear that, can you?
What's that?
The storm in the background. You don't hear that.
No, I can't hear anything.
Okay, I just had to make sure. So can I say the question one more time?
Sure. Yeah. It just had to do with a classification of heterotrophic and autotrophic protists.
So if I remember the definition you gave up, because this is one of those things I didn't study in too much because I only had so much time, but it seems like if I were to put them in kinds, you would put one under the kind and a self sufficient kind. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. The kind that provides for itself, is able to take care of itself and provide its own. Well, pro don't necessarily do that, do they? Anyway, so one provides for itself, the other doesn't. If I had to put them into kinds.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. And Dr. Hovind, did you want a final word on that one?
No, nothing to add to that. Go ahead.
Okay, so this next question comes in from Rutilo Calabero. So this one is for you there, Ken Rock. Given the rate the sun is burning up fuel, how can we have a Goldilocks zone billions of years ago?
Well, there's two different ways that we could explain that. One would be you can't necessarily prove that the rate at which the sun itself is burning up fuel, that it's constantly burning up fuel at that rate. That's at some point it didn't gain a little bit of its own some mass as well. You'd also say, if you wanted and you truly didn't want to believe that, you could say God himself kept it good because he doesn't want humans to obviously burn up.
Okay, thank you for that response there, Ken. And over to you, Dr. Dino, if there's anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, I'm looking for, I cover that on my video number 1 of my creation seminar series called The Age of the Earth. I don't think anybody argues the sun is burning. And it's burning about 5 million tons of fuel every second. I don't think anybody argues about that. Now, the rate of consumption of fuel on the sun would change as the sun's mass changes because the surface area is changing. But I think everybody agrees the sun is burning up fuel and it is shrinking. It's been observed to shrink about 5 feet per hour since they've been able to measure it, okay? So cover that. Okay, here's coming up in a second. So I think that the obvious assumption would be the sun is burning, it's losing mass, and it's losing diameter. Now it oscillates like a ball of gas, I understand, but obviously it's burning, it's going to lose fuel and diameter. So to say it's billions of years old is not logical. It's a religious belief. It can't possibly have been doing that for billions of years. You can go back in time, if you can imagine going back in time, the sun would be bigger and heavier. This is going to create problems. The bigger is going to create problems, but the heavier is going to really create a problem because now it changes sun's gravitational pull and it's going to suck the planets in. And the Goldilocks zone it means that the Earth is just the right distance from the sun, not too hot, not too cold, Goldilocks. If the Earth were closer, like Venus, we would burn up. If the Earth were farther away, like Mars, we would freeze. We're in what's called a Goldilocks zone. I think it was designed. I think it's just common sense to say, wow, maybe this thing was designed by an all-wise creator for life to exist here. So I've chosen to believe that. I'm not making everybody pay for that to be taught, but I think that's a logical conclusion to come to. Go ahead.
Thank you for the response, Dr. Dino. Ken Rock, a final word before we move on?
Nothing to add. Let's go to the next.
All right, next question here comes in from Gate Watchers, and this one is for you, Ken Rock. So let's see here. Question for Ken. What size was the Earth when it was formed? Were your geological layers formed in millions of years apart? Maybe the Earth squashed the animals. What are your thoughts on that?
Don't know why the Earth is squashing animals. Realistically, I don't know how old the Earth is. I've never looked into that. I've seen millions and billions of years old. I have no reason to not believe that. So, the geological layers being formed over millions of years. It's not as ridiculous as it seems. If you have a bookcase behind you, both of you. So if you don't touch anything on there, what happens? It forms a layer of dust on top of it. Well, that dust had to come from somewhere. So clearly, stuff can still form on top of stuff. That was the weirdest way of saying that ever. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Ken, Rock. Dr. Dino, anything you'd like to add for your response?
Logic column
Can't hear you.
is.
Oh.
Am I muted? Am I
No,
muted?
you're good now. You're
Okay.
good,
All right.
Kent. We can hear you.
Just the very concept that the layers of the earth are different ages is stupid. Stop and think about it. They're telling the kids the top layer is younger than the one below it. Where's this layer coming from? Outer space? All the layers of the earth, all of them are the same age. There's no such thing as a geologic column. In order for layers to be different ages, they'd have to be coming from someplace else, off the planet. If you shuffle a deck of cards, is the top card younger? No. If you shake up a jar of mud till it separates into gravel, sand, clay, which it'll do for you quickly, is the top layer younger? No. The whole evolution religion is built on that stupid idea that the layers are different ages. All the layers are the same age. Moving it from here to here doesn't make it a different age. So there is no such thing as a geologic column. Does it exist? No. So what size was the Earth? I think the Earth was about the same size, 8,000 miles, 7926 or whatever it is, depending where you're standing, in diameter. Of course, you Canadians use metric. That's why you lost the war. But I think the Earth was created about this size. It's got just the right gravity for people to live on and function. If the Earth had more gravity or less gravity, that would create problems. I think it's really, you'd almost think it was designed if you didn't know better. I think it was designed. Okay?
Thank you for that response, Kent. And since the question was for you, Ken Rock, you can have the final word.
I don't necessarily know why the material would have to come from somewhere else. So one of the things that we know about the Earth is dust, dirt, and all that does get picked up all the time with wind and all that. There are phenomenons where you can see even the wind itself picks up enough water that fish and all that will fall out of the sky in certain locations. So the layers themselves could just be that. Areas from one location being moved throughout the planet, which would definitely be explained if a flood would happen as well. And also, when they're talking about how old the layers are, they're not talking about how old the material are. It's more when the layer was formed. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Ken Rock. And let me see the next question here. We have a lot of them, so I'm just going to pick one at random. And this one is from Landon Freeman. So this one, again, is for you, Ken. Landon Freeman asks, there are many examples of convergent evolution. How can a random, goalless, naturalistic process reintroduce the same designs / features with such astounding consistency?
I'm going to have to take a page out of Kent's book and just point out that if it works, it generally is going to work. So if, let's say, you get an insect to protect you and all you have to do is give up some of your nutrition, produce a special sap for it. There are trees. I was looking into this the other day. There's a tree in Africa, I think it was Africa. Anyway, to keep itself safe from elephants, it produces a sap and produces holes in its fruit, which ants can hide in. These allows the ants free food and shelter, and they protect the tree from the elephants. This happens multiple times. Ants alone do this with multiple different species of plants. There's also the fact that I do believe that there is a God, so I do believe that he would guide this a little bit more as well. So I don't think it's necessarily guideless. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Ken, and over to you, Kent, for your response.
I think a good question. The idea that convergent evolution, the plants evolve to produce fruit that the animals evolve to need for their diet. That's ridiculous. They were designed. This ink pen has a little cap on it here that has threads inside, female side. The pen itself has the male thread. It's designed to screw together like that. There are examples of design, different plants that require certain animals to pollinate them. They can't be pollinated without that animal or that insect. There are certain plants that a certain kind of butterfly has to land on it, has a certain length of his nose to stick down there to get the juice to change to pollinate the plant. Billions of examples can be found of symbiotic relationships that I think absolutely defy an evolutionary explanation. You can imagine it all you want. Join SpongeBob here, just imagine, but it's not science. My point has always been there is no scientific evidence of any animal or plant ever producing offspring other than what any 4-year-old would tell you is the same kind. There's just no evidence for it. It ought to be taught in private schools or in religion classes, but not in science class. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Dino. And a quick final word there, Ken Rock.
An interesting thing with the fruits I was brought up. So the animals don't just get food out of that. So one of the things that fruit provides, we all know fruits have seeds in them. So when an animal eats a fruit, it generally carries that seed with it, or within its digestion, or when it goes and discards the fruit. So in some way, the seed gets to be replanted and grow more trees. So the plant gets a lot more out of it as well. That's it.
Okay, next question comes in from Org343. Org, thanks for the question. This one is for you, Kent. So short and sweet, he asks, how is an insect not alive? Question for Kent.
Well, I just pointed out that God told Noah to bring onto the ark all those in whose nostrils is the breath of life. Of course, our modern science, we consider insects alive, I understand. Does that mean that's the way God classifies them? Is a plant alive, okay? Is a stalactite alive? It grows. We have decided to make a list of qualifications to be considered alive. It has to do, A, B, C, D, E. Is that God's same list? I don't know. But Noah was told to bring onto the ark all those in whose nostrils was the breath of life. Insects breathe through their skin, through spiracles. They don't breathe through nostrils. There might have been insects on the ark. There probably were. But they weren't required to be brought onto the ark. They can survive on floating log mats and go to any place where there's been a flood. When the water goes down, walk out in the mud, there's a bazillion insects within a few hours. They survive floating log mats and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm just pointing out the biblical classification of life might not include insects. That's all.
Thank you for the response, Kent. Ken Rock, anything you wanted to add to that?
The only thing I could really think to add to that is there's no way to really argue that insects aren't really alive. They meet all the criteria. They grow, they adapt, they feed, they breed, they do all the stuff that living things are expected to do. So, next.
Thank you. A final word from you, Dr. Hovind?
Well, yeah, he said they meet all the criteria. Whose criteria? Modern man has decided to make a list of things. If it does A, B, C, D, E, we call it alive. Is my computer alive? No. Can it do some amazing things? Can it make a copy of a program? Yeah, it can reproduce. Whoa. Well, it's not alive. So it's a semantic thing, okay? Doesn't matter to me. Insects were not taken onto the ark is the point I made.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Gentlemen, as we start winding down here, let me get this question in. And this one comes in from Jacob. Jacob, thanks for the question. This one's for you, Ken. So question is, do you realize that adaptation points animals towards better versions of themselves, while evolution leads species away from themselves?
Okay, there's a few things that are being assumed here. One, better itself. What do you mean by better? You can, let's say you get really strong legs, like you'll be a better runner, not necessarily going to be better at climbing. So what is better? And you said evolution leads species away from themselves. No. You're still that type of animal. You're just a more adapt version of that animal. Like Kent says, I don't think the animals care what we call them. I don't think they care how we categorize them. So realistically, that's all just up to human error. So that's technically, if you really want, you could say they're still the same kind of animal, just a better version of that animal. Again, by whatever you mean by better. So next.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And over to you, Kent, for your response.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to add to that. I think all we've ever seen is variations of the same kind.
Okay, gentlemen, well, let's do this as I want to try and end this around the 90-minute mark in order to respect the time of the debaters. There's also an after show that is going to take place on Logical Plausible Probables channel. It is going to kick off right after this debate. Again, Kent and Ken, thank you for making this an easy debate to moderate. Let's have some final words, final thoughts before we shut it down for tonight. Let's start with you, Ken Rock. Yeah, some final thoughts, final words, and thanks for doing this.
I don't really have a whole lot of final thoughts that I can put here. I am curious, and I know this isn't generally how it's done, but I'm going to ask out of the blue anyway if Kent would be willing to go for a part 2 at some point in the near future.
Oh, anytime. I'll debate anybody anytime.
Sweet. We can get that set up then, and that's all I have. I don't really have any final words then if we can go for a part 2 then.
Sounds good. Ken Rock, I appreciate that. Thanks for doing this debate, and one day I'm sure we will get the big rematch between Ken and Kent. So over to you, Dr. Dino. Final words, final thoughts, and thank you for doing this.
Well, I would ask Ken about Pascal's wager. If you are right, and there is no God, there's no creator, and we got everybody blind chance, I haven't lost a thing. I've lived a wonderful life. I enjoy life. If I'm right and you're wrong, you're in trouble. So Pascal's wager is a very legitimate wager. I can't lose. You can lose. If there's a God and he created the world, would it be logical that he would write a book and tell us how he did it and why he did it? I think God spoke through 40 different men, told them things to write down, made sure that book was preserved. I think I've got a copy of it right here on my desk. I think the Bible has been preserved through the centuries. This is God's word to his creatures, to his creation. He tells how he did it. I think it's not possible for all the plants and animals to evolve separately. They all depend upon each other. A lug nut is no good without a lug to screw it on. And a tire is no good without a rim. There are trillions of symbiotic relationships that just require a designer. So, Ken, I'd like you to really stop and examine, why on earth do you believe what you've been taught about evolution? Have you stopped? Are you allowed to reconsider that? I'd like you to come down, visit Dinosaur Adventureland, and come. I'll give you the tour. You can call me 855-BIG-DINO extension 3, and say, Brother Hovind or Mr. Hovind or Dr. Hovind, whatever you want to call me. Say, could you tell me about how to become a Christian? I'll explain it to you. You don't have to do it, but I'll explain what God wants. God created the world. He owns it. He makes the rules. And not even knowing you can, I'd be willing to bet you have broken some of God's rules in his book. Just read the 10 Commandments. I'd be willing to bet you broke some of those. So have I, by the way. But see, I'm forgiven. I gave my heart to the Lord. I'm forgiven. I'd like you to have the same thing. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Kent, for those final words. Again, fantastic debate. I appreciate you gentlemen doing it. The 2022 Evolution Debate Challenge continues. Dr. Hovind, you are a busy man. I don't know what the secret is. Maybe lots of ice cream and coffee, but you're going to be back here next week. The series continues. I'm trying to find the graphic here. You and here we go. D. Brian Emery and Dr. Ken Hovind. So that'll be on the 31st. The Evolution Debate Challenge continues. Looks like we got SpongeBob and SpongeBob's best buddy, Patrick, there. So should be a fun one. Again, Kent and Ken Rock, thank you so much for doing this debate. And we'll see everybody at the after show. God bless. Thanks for tuning in. And Standing for Truth is out. All right, there we go. Another one in the books. That was a ton of fun and so many good audience questions, guys. I really appreciate, how lively you guys are and how engaged you are in the chat. That was a lot of fun, that audience Q&A. As you know, the Evolution Debate Challenge continues. Pretty soon, what's going to conclude is the first quarter of 2022. So I think we've done close to about 20 debates in this Evolution Debate Challenge series. We knew that it would be fun. We knew that it would be a blast, but I don't think we anticipated that it would be this much fun. We've been doing, I think, about 2 debates a week in terms of this challenge. So for the second quarter of 2022, anybody who is interested in taking the Evolution Debate Challenge, any critic, any skeptic, shoot me an email and we will start booking you for the next 3 months of 2022. As you know, we keep these debates professional, we keep them formal, equally timed, sophisticated, and respectful. Sister Cheryl, I appreciate that. And fantastic job moderating. I look forward to Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson's new book, Traced, to come in the mail, and I'll stick it right there next to Replacing Darwin. So thank you for the kind words. Also, I did mention this earlier, but for anybody who's kind of just getting here, make sure you watch the rest of the debate. But we do have on the 30th, I am pumped for this one. Does the New Testament teach that Jesus is God? This is all confirmed. It's good to go. It is happening. Chris State versus Dr. Shabir Ali. We want to give you guys a solid diversity of important topics, okay? And that's why last week we had, this one's been getting a lot of great feedback. This was a fantastic debate. 2 powerhouses in the debate world. Kelly Powers and Dr. Robert Sangenis, they debated, does the Bible teach salvation is by faith alone? That was last week. And guys, that one was a lot of fun. So lots to look forward to. And John Maddox, logical, plausible, probable himself, he is having an after show. So everybody head on over there. Again, another one in the books. I think we're pretty close to now hosting 170 debates. So if you're new to this channel, check the debates hosted by Standing for Truth playlist section. And there's roughly 170 debates there on all sorts of topics. Theology related topics, creation, evolution, of course, age of the earth, philosophy, the nature of God, soteriology, morality, just 170 debates for the debate addict to choose from and spend endless time watching. So yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, that's about it. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. This one was a ton of fun. Again, thank you so much for the engagement in the chat. Thank you to the mods, and the Evolution Debate Challenge continues next week. As you know, we're also working on a number of presentations. I should be doing my Y chromosome presentation soon. I think either tomorrow or we'll try and do it Monday. We do have a lot going on, so just stay tuned and we'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted. So we'll see you over on John Maddox's channel. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This one was a ton of fun. So God bless. Standing for Truth is out.